Welcome to episode 2 of Off the Record, where we're covering episode 2 of Queen of Tears.
Get ready, sit back, and enjoy. All right, so we just watched like maybe the first 2 minutes of second episode, and yeah, so we just saw something where he expressed his feelings about, her, and this goes back to where we were talking about like why he's so terrified of her, is because she says, quote unquote, things in a serious nature with a straight face.
Well, that's what he said, is that you have a knack for making terrifying jokes with a straight face. I don't know. I'm going to say, I don't think that's very unique. I think this is just a part of the comedic moment where they're trying to, again, soothe the tension by making him silly. Mm-hmm. Because he's overacting in these scenes. You can see that, right? Yeah.
But there's still that, like, fear, and that it leads me to believe that these are the reasons why in which he feels the way he feels.
I'm just going to say the fear is not a real thing, and it's just being used as a comedic trope, yes. Okay. Yeah, 100%.
No, that's fair. Right.
Also, I'm still mad that he told her he loved her. In this series. Yeah, in this part right here. Yep. And you can tell from her expression that she doesn't believe him. And that's why she's calling his bluff, saying, really, if you can't live without me, then let's just die together.
Yeah, suicide pact.
Yeah, right? And he's like...
Sorry, unaliving pact.
Anyway, and then he's like, oh, no, I was just being hypothetical. Ha-ha, tee-hee, not really.
Ha-ha, hee-hee.
Okay, so finally, the POV from her point of view is nothing like his point of view, and it paints him to be
the asshole.
The asshole, yes!
Which, I mean, yeah, he is kind of the asshole in this moment, because it's like, why are you already assuming...
He's not assuming anything other than he's just refusing to go anywhere with her, right? He's refusing to...
Based off of something, though. Like,
well, remember that this was right after she had told him off about making her look bad in front of other people. Remember?
Right,
this is the same day.
Same day.
Yep, the same day that they had that bickering moment in front of colleagues, and then she went into the elevator with him and told him to basically never disrespect her or undermine her in front of people again. Yeah. Remember?
And with Gracie fanning the flames of those feelings as well.
Right, but this is where it's heartbreaking, right? Where she's looking really nervous. She just got off the phone with the doctor. Yeah. And all she said was, we have to go somewhere together right now. You're free, right? The car's waiting downstairs. And for him to just...
She didn't ask him you're free. She's like, I know you're free. Is that what she said?
She said, you're free the rest of the day, aren't you? That's what she said. It's a question. Yeah.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah, it was a question. For he took it as, I already checked your schedule. You got nothing going on. So you're going to come
in his POV, that's how he heard it.
Yes, in his point
Is there really that difference between those two?
Huge difference, yes. Yeah, everything from her expression, because on his point of view, her expression was like angry, aggressive, and also very cold. And she basically came up to him and was like, you need to come with me somewhere. Yeah. And I already checked your schedule. You're free. The car's waiting downstairs. That's how she saw it. Or so that's how he saw it.
Yeah.
Her point of view is she's nervous.
I didn't know the lines were different. Okay.
Yeah, the lines were different too. Yep. And this is why I'm a little upset that we don't get to see that many moments where you're seeing her point of view in addition to his version of things. Right. Because the audience is going to see... First of all, this story is told in his point of view basically for the most part, based on the ending. We all know that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is his story about his relationship with her. Yep. So you're going to be skewed in what he sees. Right. There's only a very small moment where they change the perspective to her. So I kind of don't know how I feel about that in terms of storytelling, because you don't change the voice that much. You usually keep with one voice. Yeah. Right? But I think it was important they did that so that people understood that it's not as simple as what one might be. It's not simple to say, oh, he's the problem or she's the problem.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think, though, having this point of view separated that way is trying to make you feel that she's the problem or he's the problem. I think it's just the way the story is being told. I don't think there's necessarily like a different intent behind it other than that.
I think there is a little bit, because right now you're trying to figure out who to root for, because it's only episode 2, and in episode 1,
But are we choosing sides? Like, do we have to choose sides?
I would be very surprised if no one while watching this had not chosen a side.
Right, but I mean, like, is this the type of like K-drama where like, oh, I have to root for her? Like,
In the
can't we
beginning,
like root for them both
I would say in the beginning,
to be successful?
I would say in the beginning, I don't think that's what the audience is trying to figure out. The audience is trying to figure out, what is the story?
Right.
Who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? Who am I supposed to root for?
Right.
Okay, and you can see that by the writers. Like we talked about in the last episode, first episode 1 of Queen of Tears, is that the entire setup of the characters had you lean towards him as the favorite protagonist.
Okay.
Now you know that because of the way that they're showing his side of things, how he's had it rough, how this, and this, right? Even with the part where he's being like terrible, he's a terrible character, right? Where he is glad that she's gonna only have 3 months to live, all that stuff, right? But despite all of that, they still made him a redeeming character that you still might want to root for by leveraging how much terribleness her family is. So that's skewing audience viewership right there in terms of who that, is going to be the protagonist. Now, it gets more complicated as you watch the series, right? But when you're trying to write characters and write scenes and you're only leaning towards one side, that's where you're trying to get the audience to root for one person over the other.
Right, but again, I still bring up the question of, why do we need to pick sides? Or you're saying essentially the writers want you to choose a side with the way that they wrote the characters. Is that what it is?
Yeah, because you've got to figure out who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist, right? And in some ways, it's going to be ambiguous for a minute, who's actually the good guy and who's actually the bad guy, right? And it's not like we're picking sides to only like see one. The way that they're making it, the way that's written is that no matter what in a story, you're going to have a bias, right? With certain characters, the main voice, if you will, right? So the main voice is telling you, I'm suffering because of this person, and you don't hear from the other person at all, then you have no choice but to say, yeah, this person is suffering because of this person and their actions, right? And that's the only voice you hear. Does that make sense? So it's not really what it's...
It does if you are viewing it from the point of view of wanting to feel a certain way for each character, rather than, and this is where you and I differ vastly, is I see them both on the same side, fighting for the same thing, which is at this point or later on. Well, yeah,
we're talking about something later on. I'm talking about in the beginning.
Right. Okay. So if you're I can see then your point of view going into.
Yeah, I'm not talking about anything else. Okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about the second episode and the first episode. That's all I'm talking about.
I think though, for me, for someone who's watched like romances and comedies and whatever it may be, like stories like this, I always root for the couple to eventually come back together, and so that's why I never really saw it as like, oh, I gotta choose his side, I gotta choose her side in the beginning.
That would be a little unusual because people identify with characters that they see on screen. They identify with whoever is the main voice, is the storyteller, right? And so in a way, that's why acting is so important, because you got to buy into it, right? If someone's telling you that they want your sympathy on screen, right, and they're laying out all these foundations and these evidence on why they want your sympathy, right, and they're trying to elicit that emotion from you on screen or in their story,
right,
and all you hear is their voice, you have no choice in a way but to feel that sympathy if all the facts line up, right? So that's what I'm just talking about. I'm just talking about it's bias towards the main, the male lead, in the very beginning, because they're painting her out to be a cold, uncaring person. For what reason, we don't know. We don't know why she's doing that. We just know that this is what's happening. This is her family upbringing. So they're further attacking her as a character. That's all I'm trying to say. So when you provide a secondary voice, it's very important, because then you start to see that that's not the reality of things, no matter how much that main protagonist wanted you to believe that's the reality of things. Yeah. So that's why I am 100% on board with adding more perspectives to the same situation, or maybe to another situation, which they try to drop that as much as they can throughout the series. And in this scene, I love this scene because I remember watching it, getting a little confused while we were repeating the scene.
Right.
And then I was like, oh my God, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And that was to provoke the audience to be like, hey, you might not be so quick to judge yet. There's something more to this than just him complaining about how difficult his life has been. And so that's why I'm saying I wish there was more obvious moments like that. But at the same time, if we did that with every single part, it would be like 30 episodes long because it's just too much.
I'll say this. I think, and I mean, I'm letting the audience say if this was their point of view or not. But from what I've heard from people who listen to our podcasts, or at least literally just one person, was saying that the depths in which we go into character analysis has not been something that they ever thought of. Okay. Especially going into this drama where they, and that's what I was kind of bringing up earlier about saying that not necessarily looking at this drama to choose sides, at least in the beginning, but it's more so like overall looking at the relationship, what's wrong with it, what are they going to do to fix it kind of thing, and like all that. So it's not necessarily like, oh, Haein is versus Hyunwoo kind of thing. It's more like, what's wrong with the relationship? Why can't they be together kind of thing? I think on the surface level that's how most people will see it, whereas we're going into like the nitty gritty of like, why is their character like this? Why are they acting that?
Tell us in the comments what your initial reactions were, because for me, it was definitely trying to figure out what characters am I looking at here? What's going on here? Who is actually the person that is the antagonist? Who's the protagonist? Is she actually the antagonist, or is she both him and her are the protagonist, and there's an actual antagonist, right?
And so, but that's and though in the beginning of the story, or the first 2 episodes now, like, are you wanting there to be an antagonist or a protagonist between the two of them?
No, I already told you. It's about how they're writing the script and how they're portraying her.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what I want. It's about what it's being portrayed, because storytelling, especially visually, is all about eliciting a response from the audience. So by putting it all in the male protagonist's point of view, elicits a response for him, right? Whether it be good or bad. In this situation, for the most part, and for the most of the audience who have been watching this, that I've heard feedback from, is that they feel a lot of sympathy towards him, right? That they feel bad for this guy who is, in an unhappy relationship with someone.
Okay, and so everyone, at least from the majority rule, it sounds like everyone sees Haein as
in the beginning,
the
in the very beginning, yeah.
Right.
Maybe not the antagonist, right?
But someone to not root for at least.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe you didn't see it that way, but the thing
I can see it for sure.
But the thing is, the feedback that I've gotten from discussions with people who have seen the show, they are really like, I feel, and they don't say it's like one side or the other. They try to back up and try to say it's both their faults, but in the very beginning,
exactly what people are thinking.
But that's after they've seen more of the series.
Right.
When we're like at episode 2. The cards are definitely stacked against Haein for being the reason why the couple isn't working out right now.
Okay.
And that's all I'm trying to tell you.
I'm seeing the root of where you're coming from.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I'm not rooting for them like that. It's more of like, how am I responding to what is on screen and what is being portrayed, right? Okay. So when this scene came on and she showed you her side of things, that's when I was like, and there's more to it.
Right, and so with that though, now that I'm understanding, oh shoot, they're showing 2 different sides, like legit, like different lines. You really can't trust anything moving forward. Now I feel like I'm getting duped somehow. Like, all right, is Hyunwoo's point of view like the real shit, or what's he hiding? Where's the shit?
This is why I said release the POV, right? This is why I said that from the last episode, because
Queen is here. Release the other side of the argument, please.
But actually, I say that, but throughout the series, we already know that the director and the writers have done their part in trying to allow people to see her side of things without having to refilm the entire thing, right? Rehash the whole thing. And they've shown that how he also is, misunderstanding things. And so they've done a good enough job for us to, and I know that because we have bought in to Haein's side of things.
Oh,
that's how I know it worked, right? So that's why I'm telling you, I'm not going to say that, it was, we're trying to root for one side or the other. It's about how we are responding to, what's happening and how it's being portrayed. Because if they could portray her as this one-sided thing with Hyunwoo's perspective for a very long time, they could have pushed this, and I've seen this before, where they push one character's POV for like 5 episodes, and then all of a sudden they're like, just kidding, and then they're showing you what's actually happening, and it uncovers this whole reactionary thing where everything you knew was wrong, and you feel frustrated and crushed by the main protagonist thinking he was doing the right thing this entire time, and it turns out he knows nothing. So that's why I'm saying it's all about responding to the character, and that's why script writing, the way that it's being filmed, and the acting is very, very important. And that's why I have to say Queen of Tears hits the top tier right now for that level of quality, because we are seeing so much high quality, acting as well as scene production, that we are changing our perspective. Not perspective, but we're changing our idea of what's going on based on in our emotions based on these scenes unfolding as they are, right? Because you think you know something, and then they're like, no, you don't. Here's what actually is going on.
Yeah, they do toss in a lot of curveballs.
Yeah, so that's why I'm over here for all Haein's POV, right? The little moments that we get with her.
Okay, so there's been one thing that I've been wanting to ask you ever since finishing the series, and it has to deal with what the scene we just saw is, where we finally see the first time she is in the trance, where she's losing her time, but she doesn't know it, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that I noticed was that, especially as the series went on, were all these different scenes that she gets put into are like scenes from either the future or the past.
Okay.
Like the scenery, the background, and everything. There are things that happen. They are the things that happen in the future or in the past.
Okay.
There are many instances of this happening whenever you see her in these trances, and then when you go to another episode, they're like, "Wait, where did I see this before?" So my theory is, and this is probably like a very out there kind of thing, she's a time traveler. This is a time traveling K-drama.
That's funny you say that, because I've already seen some opinions online about people's reaction to these scenes, and I'm trying not to spoil it because it becomes more clear the further you watch the series. Yeah. But it has been said that she's experiencing a paranormal moment where she's actually, I don't know about the past, because I've only seen this one time, so I want to now go back and take note of every single time she's having her blackouts and she's being transported to a weird setting, right?
Right.
Because she's actually feeling the
cold,
coldness,
the heat,
she's
the
feeling
ground.
the heat, she's feeling everything, right? But what we've come to see is that these scenes that she is in
during her blackouts
are part of her future.
Yeah.
So the only thing I want to say with that is that I wanted to see why, if there is any specific reason why the director chose certain scenes for her certain blackouts. Like right now she's in the winter scene a lot, and from what we know that winter scene isn't happening for a while.
Winter is coming. But right, and for me, after like kind of, at least for my theory and putting pieces together and all that, it comes back to this thing I recently read online. It's the other thing other than deja vu. It's called deja reve, where you dream or you have a dream of a moment in time where it's like, oh, I don't know, what is this, like what is happening here, blah blah blah, but then a year, many months later, you live that exact moment. You're essentially dreaming of the future. And so I'm wondering if she and if the directors are kind of alluding to her having these blackouts as a version of deja revu.
Probably. I mean, she also had a hallucination of something without leaving her reality at one point, right? And that happened to be something she witnessed for a very distant future. I mean, like 50 years down the line, right?
Yep.
And so it's very curious that I don't think they fully developed this idea. I could be wrong. Maybe we'll see more of it as we do a rewatch.
And maybe it wasn't intended to really have any backbone to it.
It might just be a little snippet of like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But
could be.
I don't know. Well, maybe we'll know more as we're trying to look at it through a second lens. But for right here, I'm very curious why it's winter.
Yeah.
Because this is episode 2. Why is it winter?
Right.
And I believe in her actual current state, it's like, I don't know what season it is. Maybe summer? I don't know.
This would be, I would say,
no, fall.
Springtime.
Maybe spring?
Because when he went back home to Yeongduri, it was cherry blossoms.
Ah, yeah. So it's springtime.
Springtime right now.
Okay, springtime.
Yeah.
So why would she be having visions of winter?
Right.
So let's just keep that in mind as we're watching this, right? It's very interesting.
Because we now know she only has 3 months to live.
Ah, that's right. 3 months to live, and that still won't be winter.
Exactly. And I think I know where we're going with this, because if you remember, there was another promise that was made later on.
Yes, but
that is totally 100% playing into this blackout.
I guess, but nobody would know that at this point.
Right, but that when you're watching it though, that just like, oh, light bulb moment. So
also, let's just count how many times she has a blackout. Jesus, drink every
first
time
one?
she has a drink every time she has a blackout moment.
Right.
And here we go. Finally, we have the explanation of why
she didn't show up.
Yeah, why Haein did not show up for that important meeting with Hyunwoo. So this is interesting. She is telling the doctor how many times she has not passed out, has blacked out, right?
Yeah.
And
losing time from 30 minutes to hours.
And it's not clear how long this has been going on at all. So we actually don't know how much of this has played into their misunderstanding as well.
Oh, yeah.
What is also scary is that she hasn't told anyone about this, and I hate the fact that no one noticed either.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really bother me when I see this, and it's a little triggering from like personal experience here, is that when you have someone that is technically in this instance has gone, I guess saying she's gone missing is incorrect, but maybe in this scene right here where she was in her office, just in her office potentially for hours, and then she did not leave for her meeting, was not questioned really.
Right.
It wasn't strange that she would cancel her meetings, like not show up to certain meetings. Maybe did she act differently? Like we don't even know anything about that. Why is it that she can disappear for hours, black out, and no one noticed that?
Well, there's two things that I would say to that. Is one, later on, and I'm not sure if it's in this episode or another episode, but we do know that she kind of enters into an autopilot mode. She even has moments where they show her blacking out or not there, but she still has simple conversations. There were those moments. So, and the point where, people aren't caring or aren't really taking notice, I put that on people's fear of her. As in, like, they're not going to question what the CEO does. You know, they're not going to question, like, she might be doing something else.
And this is the part where I'm going to put some hate on Hyunwoo as her husband, because he should have noticed that. He should have noticed something was wrong with her, because when you are acting strange, there's no way that someone who, I mean, they don't explain her condition very well, so we don't actually understand what she's like when she's experiencing the blackout. We only see her POV, which is, honestly, it's not great. All we see is her getting confused.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's actually happening on the other side of things. Mm-hmm. So due to that, it's left for us to figure out why, like, how she is, right? And how anyone is perceiving her. And I guess she must be acting pretty normal for people to not think anything differently, right? But how is...
Until it gets really severe, which we see later on, I believe.
Yeah, until it gets a lot more severe, where she's now no longer acting normal, and she's actually, like, acting abnormal, which we still don't see. We only see the consequences of that. Right. We don't actually see her behavior.
I mean, we see her... There's another moment later on in an episode where she's literally just standing out in the rain and on her...
Oh, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that scene.
Oh, bro.
We can't talk about that scene right now. I'm not ready.
Oh, yeah, that opened up an old wound.
Yes, I don't know why he just casually opened up a wound.
My bad. Yeah, no, I remember now.
We can't talk about that. I can't do it. Okay, let's bring it back. Okay.
That's when we actually like Hyunwoo. We liked him a little bit.
I'm not ready to talk about that scene. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you something. What is a normal reaction to from a spouse to their spouse, right? After hearing that this tragic news about them dying and only have 3 months to live. What is the normal response that evening? Between two people, what is a normal response?
And I'll preface saying, again, this isn't normal, but yes, it's not this.
It's most definitely not
It
this.
is very messed up as to, like, if we're putting it into the frame of actual real life, oh, shit's fucked up.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing for him. We already know, like, this is great news for him. And they're trying to make this comedic, right? I mean, this next scene where he's had the best sleep of his freaking life, right? After hearing about this. It's so fucked up.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about this. If this was being portrayed with literally other characters, right?
Yeah.
It would show them embracing. It would show them, basically comforting each other.
Right.
Where was the comfort? Oh, minus his little weird, awkward, I love you, I'm sorry I mistreated you.
Right.
Outside of that, where was all that?
And again, this is because of how the writers are trying to put a comedic spin to this.
Exactly. And once again, it's skewed in his favor.
Right.
Yeah. And in the scene that we're about to watch, right, where it's the next morning after they had a long discussion about,
learning her fate of 3 months.
And her diagnosis, you see that it's, once again, this whole comedic part, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, I need to act like someone who has, I need to act the role and the part of a caring husband who just learned his wife's dying, not how I actually feel.
Yeah.
And then he overdoes the entire thing, right?
And really thinking of it in the sense of, like, of seeing Haein as, like, the person we want to protect kind of thing. That's fucked up, the way he, like, goes about his business. Because we see it from his point of view, where he, again, like you said, he's not showing his true emotions about it.
So then, my question then, in this moment, does Hyunwoo actually feel any devastation towards Haein?
I would say 80-20. 80 no, 20... I want to believe, and this is me being a hopeless romantic kind of thing, where it's like that 20% of him of, like, yes, this is someone that I fell in love with. This is someone that I shared a short life with, essentially, and, like, he still has feelings for her, but and it's unwarranted, the fact that he's acting messed up towards it.
You gave him 20%, which is much more than he deserves. I'm gonna say that the only time that we will see in this episode where he feels anything towards her other than his excitement and and all this really terrible feelings that he's harboring, the only time that we actually see there's some feelings for her, which is really messed up, you think about it, is when she runs into Eun-sung and how Eun-sung is introduced to him. Okay? And, because prior to this, all we see is that we see him ecstatic that he's about to make a clean break. So I always wondered this. If his whole thing was to wait it out for 3 months, then why is he trying so hard to be a doting husband? He didn't have to do that before.
No.
Right? He didn't have to do that before. So this was what makes me feel like he's being extra terrible, because he's suddenly treating her with this weird, like, fake affection. I'm gonna make up the time. Why? Yeah. Why? You don't need to do that. She was perfectly
so fishy.
She was perfectly. This is before the whole thing about the will, right? Yep. So why did you do this? There was no reason for you to do this. There was no reason for you to make her feel anything. Right. There's no need
he has
for
no
you.
Reason. Like no personal reason.
He has no personal reason. Yeah. He didn't need to treat her better because.
But
the family wouldn't have suspected it otherwise. She wouldn't have suspected otherwise either.
I think, though, the reason why he does so is because he caught himself in his own lie. Because remember when she actually, like, were like in her room when she gave him the news, he then had to come up with something on the spot as to why he wanted to talk to her.
Right, and so he's just following through, right? But here's the thing: he didn't have to keep doing what he's doing. Like, he could have kept it like neutral and being. He overdoes everything.
But because he wanted that clean break, he had to follow through with what he had.
I'm gonna say that he overdid it because they made him be like exaggerating his feelings to highlight how fake he's being.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. And not only that, but also to include the whole like comedic value of it.
Yeah.
So.
But what I will say is that one of the things that's really frustrating watching this is that. He never gave... Okay, that's not true. I was going to say he never gave genuine reaction. That's not true, because he did give the genuine reaction, and that was relief. Okay, that was his genuine reaction, which is why it's fucked up. But in
to find out your spouse is passing away, that's fucked up.
Well, not just a spouse. It's someone that you loved at one point, right?
Well, he's seeing it, though, right now as his spouse. He's not seeing her
He's seeing it as a business transaction.
Exactly, yeah.
And so... For me, this is where it starts my suspicion of his feelings for her, because he did not need to do any of this. And then the second part to it is that we do not get to see his real reactions on how he actually feels about losing her until much later, when he finally realized that he actually is afraid to lose her. Yeah. But for a while there, I still didn't believe him because of all this acting that's going on.
It takes a long time for us, or for the show, to elicit that he does actually care.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a while.
100%. Okay, so we just watched a scene with, I think this is the first time we see Haein and her mom having a discussion just the two of them, right? Am I wrong? Okay.
And it's showing a lot, or it's telling a lot about their relationship as mother-daughter.
Yes, and all the problems that comes with it. So to remind the audience, this scene is where her mom went to the company to confront Hyunwoo about creating an issue with their, I guess for her it would be her father.
Yeah.
And father-in-law?
Father-in-law.
Father-in-law, yeah. Father-in-law, and he uncovered this issue where Haein's brother,
Suchol,
overpaid 8 billion won in taxes, right? And that upset her father-in-law, so she came to confront him. And
the mom thought it was all Hyunwoo who was trying to set her brother up.
Well, actually, no. She said, I knew you were behind all of this. So you're seeing right here the line in the sand where it's Hyunwoo and Haein versus Suchul and the mom and the rest of the family. Right? Yeah. And the race for who gets to inherit everything. Okay. So it's very interesting to me that her mom has the audacity to accuse these two and be on the same team when they're not really on the same team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they are, but they're not.
And like, I feel like, though, they don't even notice.
They're not even paying attention to that.
Yeah, they're not paying attention to their ongoings of their marriage, really.
No, they're not. They're not paying attention. Well, they are, but they don't care, right? They don't care that they're having a bad time. They're just like, oh, you guys might not be in love with each other. We don't care about your relationship, but you guys are definitely still after our money. That's all they care about, right? But yeah, this part made me really like, ooh, you know, especially the part where she constantly was defending her husband. Yeah. Right? This is, again, another instance of her doing it fiercely, actually, in this one. She refused to let her up. She
physically blocking her mother.
And she even said he wouldn't do that. Yeah. Right? Someone must have told grandfather, right? I didn't do it. Hyunwoo didn't do it. Yeah. And it was this fierce loyalty, right? And so
it comes out. She shows it.
So in this moment, the audience would be seeing and getting confused why Hyunwoo is treating her terribly when she's over here constantly defending him.
But he doesn't see it. Hyunwoo doesn't see.
But we see
her actions, right?
But we see it. So
is this another mechanism of the writers making you want to care more?
This is about Haein. This is the part where you're seeing her point of view. Yeah. On state of things, and you're seeing they're letting the audience see this, and it's done on purpose to make you sway now towards Haein's like issues and what she's going through. Yeah. Especially when she said, "I just told you, Mom, that I'm going through a very serious situation. Aren't you curious?" Yeah. And what did her mom say?
She was like, well, you can take care of it. You got everything handled.
You always know what to do.
You always know what to do.
I'm not worried about that. Yeah, so...
That says a lot about what her mother thinks of her and essentially just their relationship.
And then, of course, that hurt face that she has, right, that her mom doesn't care. And we're going to see that continuously happen.
And for those who... unfortunately have similar situations in their lives that it's heartbreaking, and it's so magnified in this K-drama where it's like in your face all the time and it just doesn't change until the very end, you know, and it hurts. It's sad. It's very sad.
It just further shows how isolated Haein's character is too.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, she is isolated from her family, from Hyunwoo, and this is a very powerful moment, and they do this throughout the series to show you what kind of character she is and how maybe you should feel about her. Yeah.
Hey everyone, we're planning on splitting our episode into 2 parts, seeing as sometimes things go on a little bit long. So go ahead and check out part 2 when it comes out. Thank you.